NCSS theme is on civics, and my NGSS standards are to identify what it means to be a United States citizen, either by birth or by naturalization. And the second one is to evaluate the constitutional provisions establishing citizenship and assess the criteria among citizens by birth, naturalized citizens, and non-citizens. So that ties in with my first standard. My language arts standards are to recall information from experiences or gather information from provided sources to answer questions. And the last one is to ask and answer such questions as who, what, where, when, and why, and how to demonstrate the understanding of key details in a text. The essential understanding of this lesson is that I want my students to be able to understand how to properly give public speeches like a TED Talk, and be able to use primary and secondary evidence to support their claim/opinion. I want them to also be able to understand the value of being knowledgeable on their membership to our country as citizens. So going on with that, it is useless if a student is not knowledgeable on their history or how they became citizens, because without that knowledge, they will not be able to have the proper skills to act as citizens and be able to exercise their rights. So that is very essential for them to understand that and know their history. Students will know how the Constitution became a vital document in history and how it defined our citizenship to our country. So it goes with what I was saying before. They will understand our sole duty and responsibilities that we have to our country. So the objectives are: given a question on a quiz, students will be able to accurately identify an American as a citizen of the United States, as well as recognize that Americans become citizens by birth or choice. Given a role in a classroom, family, or community, students will be able to recognize membership in a group with no misconceptions. Given primary secondary sources, students will be able to accurately present a TED Talk using PowerPoint. And given an article, the students will be able to gather information from the provided source to accurately answer questions about it afterwards, which ties in with the English standards. And then given a primary secondary source, students will be able to accurately ask questions, which also goes with the English standard. So the rationale that I have for this lesson is to teach these objectives and why they are essential when teaching students about civics. These particular objectives will help students not only have a deeper understanding on citizenship, but also be able to use primary and secondary sources to create a TED Talk using PowerPoint. This lesson fits in with the larger picture by preparing students to contribute to our society and be knowledgeable on the responsibilities and rights that they will need to adhere to as citizens of the United States of America, which have been mentioned before under the essential understanding. This lesson uses a variety of teaching strategies to provide differentiation for my students, as well as incorporating technology, which will help my students to be more engaged, and also it will promote collaborative learning. I have 3 different types of assessments in this lesson, 2 of which are formative. The first one is using Nearpod. Students will be answering my poll questions I will have for them, as well as contributing to a discussion board. And I will be able to take that data and assess whether the students understood the essential content of the video, which will be on citizenship. And also, I will be able to use the packet that they will be completing on the second day. If I haven't addressed that before, this lesson is going to be it's going to take up to 2 days to teach. So using this packet, Sam's first day, I will be able to use what they answer on the questions for that work packet to assess what they comprehended from the text, and also if they understood the third objective, which entails being a good citizen in a classroom setting. My summative assessment is I will be using their TED Talk presentation that they will have at the very end, and if they achieve the understanding of membership within a group and how it ties in with membership as a citizen in the United States. The content knowledge that a teacher needs to have to teach the lesson is that she will need to know what the Constitution represents in our country and to us as citizens. Will need to be knowledgeable on primary and secondary sources, and obviously how to gather information from them and answer questions. She will need to be able to read articles and ask questions, which are tying back to the English language arts standards, which is the who, what, where, when, and why, to demonstrate understanding of the key details. And they will need to be familiar with TED Talks, as well as be knowledgeable on the attainment of citizenship. The background knowledge that I expect my students to have before meeting these objectives is that they will need to be knowledgeable on the difference between the primary and secondary source. So that way when we go into this lesson, they already know, they can be able to use which source correctly and be able to cite them correctly. Students will need to be able to know how to use technology for research purposes. Students will need to know how to make a PowerPoint. And students will be able to read an article and recall main idea and topics as well as supporting details. This is something that they will obviously, they will definitely know at this point because they have been taught to do that in first grade and continue doing it all throughout second grade. So they will know that at this point. And then they will also be able to navigate through Nearpod. These students have been exposed to technology and different other teaching tools like Nearpod and Seesaw in their STEM classes. So I expect them to be able to navigate through that easily. Students might, so misconceptions that I have is that the students might think that everyone living in the U.S. are citizens. They might get confused that the PowerPoint is the presentation alone, then actually talking to your audience on your opinions and ideas that you gather like a TED Talk would go, which I will address later. The teaching methods that I have for this lesson are turn-in talks, read-alouds, collaborative learning, demonstration, which is a lot, basically like modeling for the students, use of instructional technology, which is the Nearpod. So for the first day, the teacher will start the lesson with a concept map. She will have the word citizenship written on the board, and this is a really great way to pre-assess the students on what they already know on what citizenship means to them, and I can be able to use that data to influence my instruction for later on in the day if I need to, or even the next day. And I will give them that opportunity to turn and talk with their partner on it. They will have a minute to do so. And then I will use the stick method, which is basically picking out a random stick with a student's name on it. This will keep them on their toes and then making sure that they are contributing to this concept map instead of relying on me calling out. So once teacher writes down the student's response, they will be introduced to the learning goals. The teacher, which could be the objectives, by the way, and then the teacher will tell the students the expectations, and then how to behave when using the iPads to access Nearpods. Students will have QR codes on their desk. This is a really great way to save a lot of time. It just takes them straight to the website. All they have to do is scan it and then just type in the code to enter the lesson. They will start the lesson with a video, brain pop video on citizenship. Afterwards, they will have slides with poll questions on them, and they will have a minute to answer each question on the video that they had just watched. The reason why I chose poll questions is because after the students submit their answers, their names will be obviously censored, so it will all be portrayed, or projected I should say, so we can all see them as a class. If there are any misconceptions, this will be the time to clear them, and also have a class discussion about why it is that we all picked this answer. So that also promotes collaborative learning. And then they will put their iPads down. We will come to the carpet and we will do a read aloud on an article called "What Does It Mean?" or "What Does It Take to Become a U.S. Citizen?" Then they will engage in another turn-in talk with a guiding question, which will be, what is one takeaway you got from the article? And they will then go back to the desks and go on the next slide, which will have another discussion board on Nearpod. And the question for that will be, what are 2 ways you become a citizen of the United States of America? That's a great formative assessment that ties in with what I will be using as my data. This will let me know if the students understood the objective at that point and can be able to tell me if you become a citizen by naturalization, what does that mean, you know? So they will have 5 minutes to type down their responses, and then they will be able to get another opportunity to engage in a class discussion based on all their posts that I will display on the board. And then they will be provided with a paper, that has information on the Constitution, and have a copy of the actual Constitution on their Nearpod. So they will have both in hand. Then there will be a class discussion post, another one, and the question will be, how does this connect to citizenship? So they will have their about 5 minutes to complete that, and this will be a good time for students to also if they have any questions, or if there is a student in our class that has gained citizenship through naturalization, this is also another way for them to even gain another perspective and ask a student on the process of becoming a citizen. So that's how that lesson would end. And then the second day, we would begin with another concept map on citizenship, but this will be a great way to recall the information that we learned from the day prior and assess them on that. And then the teacher will start the reading with Sam's first day, and this will start on the carpet. Then they will be sent back to their desk, where they will complete a work packet that the teacher's helpers will help pass out. And then afterwards, we will watch a TED Talk video to introduce the students on what it looks like and what I expect their TED Talk to look like. And it will be on a video on a girl who is around their age, to just make it more relatable and show them that it can be done by kids, and how she had her pictures in the background to show how she was using primary and secondary sources. They can use PowerPoint, or they can use bullet points or pictures, whichever they prefer, but they are using their PowerPoint just as a guide, not to just rely on it. Is mostly them talking and presenting their evidence and their ideas. So they will have 10 to 15 minutes to research primary and secondary sources. They can use the article that we talked about, Sam's First Day, as a primary source, which talks about how the citizen how a good citizen acts in the classroom. And the students will be split up into groups of 6, 3 in each, and they will be assigned either a classroom, family, or what was the other one? Community. So they will have 5 minutes to present each, and then they will talk about, they can use for community, they don't have to research that much. They can just use pictures of their parents, like either they can talk about how their mom or dad is a doctor or a construction worker or a teacher, and talk about how their parent is contributing to our society with the job that they have, and how they connects to being a good citizen. So yes. And then lastly, what a student struggles, if a student struggles with the content, then there will be a class discussion to clear up any misconceptions like I talked about before. So there are many opportunities to clear up any questions or confusion. Turn and talks is another way for students to rely on their peers for clarification and prompt metacognition. If a student masters the content quickly, then the students will put themselves in this person's shoes who are not citizens, and talk to a partner or a person that has gone through that, and just discuss the requirements of becoming a citizen. I think that'd be a really interesting conversation to have. Also, turn and talk on the duties and responsibilities citizens have to uphold as citizens in the country. And then how this connects to my students' backgrounds. Well, many of my students come from different backgrounds. So whether they know somebody or if they have personally attained citizenship one way or another, it will connect to that. So how does this lesson connect and reflect to the local community? This lesson reflects on the local community by its acceptance and welcoming of new citizens, which represents diversity. The current community that the school is located in has been growing in diversity in the last few years, so therefore, like, teaching this lesson and its connections to acceptance and embracement of diversity is important. The differentiation to the instruction for students who need additional challenge. So enrichment, that kind of goes back to what I said before. They will engage in a discussion where they will gain a different perspective for a citizen or person who is not a citizen. How you differentiate instructions for additional language support. They will be provided a dictionary to help translate, and they can, if I can find the articles in their native language, I would also provide those to them. And if there is a higher level ESOL student that can help translate if needed, I will pair them with that student. So accommodations. I have QR codes which allow ELL students to log into apps without worrying about time, and typing up the username or password is really easy. ELL students will be paired up with another student to help type up discussion posts in Nearpod if they need it. And the materials that I used were the iPads to access Nearpod. These are the texts, which are the read-alouds that I use, and then the PowerPoints that they will be using to present their TED Talk. So, yep, that's pretty much it.